To begin proceedings, I'd just like to invite Uncle Colin up to come and give a welcome to country.
Always was, always will be. Land is of great significance for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. When Australia's first peoples talk about land, they talk about the connection to country. Country refers to all the relationships that exist between an individual, their people and their ancestral lands, waters and the skies. Australia's first people talk not of ownership but of belonging and connection to country. The country sustains them and they care for their country. Caring for country is intimately bound up with identity and respect. Country is crisscrossed by songlines or dreamings that provide Australia's first peoples with social, moral and religious codes and guides for interacting with the natural environment. The land where this university stands is the country of my people, the Anoan people, who are the traditional custodians of this land. And we share the caring of this country with the Gumbaynggirri, Dunghutti and Kamilaroi people. I pay respect to the elders of those nations, both past and present, and I extend that same respect to each of you here today, and welcome. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Uncle Colin. We might get the didge playing and we'll get the flag raised. Do you want to tell them to... Can we raise the flag now, please? Thanks for your welcome up, Colin. And it's so good to see that flag flying up there above UNE. I would like to welcome our guests here today. Any elders around? And CEO and VC Vice-Chancellor Professor Brigid Heywood, Pro-Vice-Chancellor Todd Walker, Chief Operating Officer Peter Creamer, Chief Financial Officer Mrs Anita Taylor, and I'd like to also make special mention to the little ones from Yarm. My name is Bruce Dennison and I was born and bred here in Armidale. I'm a proud Anoan man with strong Kamilaroi blood and I've got mob just about everywhere. This year's theme, always was, always will be, means different things to different people, and to me the phrase reminds me of over 75,000 years, well, since the beginning of time really, that more than 350 distinct groups have occupied this country. We were given the responsibility of custodianship of this land, and to this day we still have that custodianship. Although it looks vastly different, the original responsibility given to us by our creators is still there and it has not been dissolved. No one but our creators can take that away. So therefore, it always was and always will be. I would like to invite the University of New England CEO and Vice-Chancellor, Professor Brigid Heywood, up to say a few words.
Good morning, citizens, colleagues, members of the community, and young citizens from Yarm. Welcome. May I first of all thank Colin for welcome. May I thank Bruce for acting as the MC. And may I thank all of those who have brought traditions to a unique and special welcome on this very special day, representing a very special week in the cultural history of Australia. From my Gaelic ancestors, Danuit, from my fellow citizens in New Zealand, Kia ora. I am deeply proud to be here today celebrating a very special part of Australian history. For me, this is the history, as has just been indicated, of 75,000 years of community, of environmental guardianship, of citizenship being valued, of family being at the heart, and of friendship being the narrative. Many of us have watched in fascination as the president of a new country, an old country, but a new president was elected this week. We have watched in horror as part of modern society, fake news, ambiguity, dishonesty, and at some point in time over the last week, a threat to democracy was part of our modern culture. I think all of us were unsettled, and some of us were ashamed that that would be the modern vehicle of democracy. And therefore, I think that we hold to a celebration of NAIDOC Week more purposefully and more passionately this time. Because it reminds us that the guardians of a nation are those who hold true to the care of that nation in whatever way is possible, through good times and through bad. And that they stand tall after 75,000 years as opposed to 300 years in valuing connection with each other, in valuing connection with place, and in valuing community as the highest possible instruments of the expression of that culture. As the University of New England, it's important that we continue to learn from that culture, that we continue to recognise that there is value in 75,000 years that will improve what we have achieved as a community in 300 years. It is with great pride that the University of New England represents one part of an education system that seeks to support, welcome and enable Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders to secure their future through the benefits of education. And it is clear from a review of our students that we have those students who come here because their passion is to make a difference to their community and through that to bring strength and purpose to this nation. We honour their commitment and we value deeply their contribution to the university's community. We value our connections with different mobs, and we hope that they regard us in that context. We value our connections with different families and with different groups. There is much more that we can do, but we can only do it, first of all, in partnership. We can only do it if we genuinely celebrate community. And we can only be successful at it if we always remember that there is much to learn and that our colleagues from the First Nations are willing to share and generously support us in our learning. Today and the rest of NAIDOC Week, particularly here at this university, are about learning, about valuing story, about the truth in narrative, and about the democracy that genuinely creates rich communities. Colleagues, citizens, members of the community, may I offer my deep and heartfelt thanks for being invited to share with you this celebration and all the other events that will be hosted here at the university and across the communities of this nation. Let us stand together and value collaborative, rich engagement, at the heart of which as Uncle Colin has already said, is care and guardianship of the land, the nurturing and duty of care that we share for our people, and the fact that we go forward valuing that we go forward together, bringing 75,000 years of history with us as part of the instruments of learning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Heywood. I know you're very busy and you have many other commitments, but I'd like to thank you for attending today. Our next speaker is a current student of UNE, who, after coming through our tracks program, has continued on to study an undergraduate course in archaeology. Colin Ahoy Jr. is not only fulfilling his own dreams and aspirations, but he's also being a role model for our young people and our old people as well, that they too can come to UNE via our pathways or tracks programs and be supported by the team at Oorala all the way through their journey on into their tertiary studies. So I'd like to invite Colin Ahoy Jr. up to say a few words about what NAIDOC means to him.
I'd like to start today by acknowledging the Indigenous people on whose land we meet today. Hello, my name is Colin Ahoy. My connection to Indigenous country is through my father, Colin Ahoy, whose mother is Barbara Ahoy, and her mother is Ethel De Silva, and her mother is Sarah Morris, the wife of Frank Archibald. I also have a strong connection to the Biripi country through my mother, Phyllis Ahoy's bloodline, whose mother is Phyllis Donovan, and her mother is Martha Leon, and her mother is Elizabeth Beale. These are the ways that I'm connected to both the freshwater people of the mountains and the saltwater people near the ocean. My sense of belonging is deeply connected to these lands through these people. I'm here today to talk about this year's theme for NAIDOC Week, which is always was, always will be. And what I have described to you earlier is my bloodline that goes back well into the past of the original people who are the caretakers of this land, which existed for thousands of years. And here we are in the present 2020, and it's time that Australia and all the different peoples who call this ancient place home need to recognise that the places they live has deep stories that are now part of us all, and we need to walk together into the future. We are witnessing the destruction of many culturally significant sites, such as the Juukan Gorge in Western Australia and the Birthing Tree in Victoria. How might it be possible for all contemporary Australians to feel the same connection to these cultural sites and value them as highly as we do, like we value our war memorials and cathedrals? Our younger generation farmers talk about their connection to the land that they farm, often passed from generation to generation since colonisation. However, the land they farm has a much older history, and these few generations appreciate. This older history is something that should be known, valued, and owned by all Australians. The cultural material in the landscape needs to be protected, as some of these places hold evidence of thousands of years of human occupation, and once they are gone, they are lost forever. Despite this loss, the story and knowledge remain and cannot be erased. The Black Lives Matter movement in America this year has again brought to our attention that the first people of Australia continue to face similar entrenched systemic racism. It has shone a light on the current Aboriginal deaths in custody and the disproportionate incarceration rates for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. The truth needs to be told that Australia has a history that started long before 1788 with the First Fleet, and it is a moral obligation for all contemporary Australians to own our history and truly share in the caring of this country, as it always was, always will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Colin. I know you're doing a great job here up at uni and you're making so many people proud. And you should be proud of yourself too. Our next speaker, UNE academic Donna Moodie, is a Gomeroi woman. She has previously worked in Oorala with the HEP program in the School of Rural Medicine. Donna is currently a lecturer in the Contextual Studies team in the School of Education here at UNE. Welcome, Donna.
Yama. You can say that back to me. Yama. I acknowledge the Anawan people of this country who share its care and this responsibility with the Gumbaynggirr and Dunghutti and Gumulari people. I also pay my respects to the elders, past, present and future of these nations, and I extend that respect to all Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people and to all of you here today. I also want to acknowledge in particular the following people who greatly assisted me in my thinking to bring this speech to you today. Dr. Christy O'Neill, Dr. Nikki Moodie, Dr. Tyson Yunkaporta, Mr. Stephen Bell, Mr. Bruce Dennison, and many of my colleagues in the School of Education. Thank you, Col. Thank you, VC. Thank you, Colin Jr. And thanks, Bruce, for making this happen. And hello, all you Gundaloos over there from Yam. Hello. Always was, always will be is a mantra cry from deep time and recognises that First Nations people have occupied and cared for this continent for over 65,000 years. We are spiritually and culturally connected to this country. This country was crisscrossed by generations of brilliant nations. Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people were Australia's first explorers, first navigators, first engineers, first farmers, first botanists, first scientists, first diplomats, first astronomers, and first artists. Australia has the world's oldest oral stories. The first people engraved the world's first maps, made the earliest paintings of ceremony, and invented unique technologies. We built and engineered structures on Earth, predating well-known sites such as the Egyptian pyramids and Stonehenge. One such place is the Booloominbah cultural landscape, the first site in Australia inscribed on the UNESCO World Heritage List purely for its Aboriginal cultural significance. It is one of the oldest, or it is the oldest and most extensive aquaculture site conservatively dating back 6,600 years, and that's a conservative estimate. On the lands of the Gunditjmara peoples, they first applied for World Heritage listing in 1989, and 30 years later, UNESCO inscribed a proposal on the 6th of July last year in 2019. Basalt stone deposits from lava flows have been used to construct a complex system of stone channels, weirs and traps within the natural features of the landscape. These structures have provided a plentiful supply of food, including eels, fish and turtles, for the Gunditjmara people for millennia. There are also remains of over 200 circular stone wall houses spread throughout the Booloominbah landscape. Can you imagine the engineering feat employed to build fires hot enough and accurate enough to carve the channels into those basaltic lava flows and combine that with the knowledge of seasonal rise and falls of water levels that fed the eel traps and weirs that they constructed? Bruce Pascoe, in his book Dark Emu, writes that the Gunditjmara were not just hunter-gatherers. The myth still prevails, of which Pascoe largely debunks in his excellent tome. But the Gunditjmara are cultivators and farmers. Always was, always will be acknowledges that hundreds of nations and our cultures covered this continent. All were managing the land, the biggest estate on earth, to provide for their and our future sustainably. Here I'd like to recommend another book by Bill Gammage, The Biggest Estate on Earth, How Aborigines Made Australia. Through ingenious land management systems like fire stick farming, we transformed the harshest habitable continent into a land of bounty. NAIDOC Week 2020 acknowledges and celebrates that our nation's story did not begin with the documented European contact, whether in 1770 or 1606, with the arrival of the Dutch on the west coast of the Cape York Peninsula. The very first footprints on this continent were those belonging to First Nations people. Our coastal nations watched and interacted with at least 36 contacts made by Europeans prior to 1770, many of them resulting in the charting of the northern, western and southern coastlines of our lands and our waters. For us, this nation's story starts at the beginning of time. NAIDOC 2020 invites all Australians to embrace the true history of this country, a history that dates back thousands of generations. It is about seeing, hearing and learning the First Nations' 66,000 plus year history of this country, which is Australian history. We want all Australians to celebrate that we have the oldest continuing cultures on the planet and to recognise that our sovereignty was never ceded. That brilliant broadcast, The First Australians, by Rachel Perkins and Louis Nowra begins. Before the dreaming, all that moved on the land was the wind. Then came life. Giant beings came down from the sky, came up from the sea and within the earth itself. Part human, part animal. These beings travelled the land. They danced and made love. They hunted and fought, creating the landscapes as they went. In everything they touched, they left their essence, their life force, making the land itself sacred to those who would follow them, the first Australians. Professor Mick Dodson, in his 2009 National Press Club address, stated the following: "Our adaptation and intimate knowledge of country enabled us to endure climate change, catastrophic droughts and rising sea levels. When we say country, it's a word for all the values, places, resources, stories and cultural obligations associated with that area and its features. It describes the entirety of our ancestral domains. All of it is important. We have no wilderness, nor the opposite of wilderness, nor anything in between. Country is country, the whole cosmos." The impact of colonisation and industrialisation hit hard. Rather than increase technologies and paradigms practiced by our people, the colonisers engaged and still engage in extractive resource use and abuse, leading to the predicament that we find ourselves in now, the huge threat to that sentient being, our Mother Earth. Here I introduce to you the concept of solastalgia. We have all heard of the word nostalgia, a wistful desire to return in thought or in fact to a former time in one's life, to one's home or homeland, or to one's family and friends, a sentimental yearning for a former place or time. In addition, most of us are aware of the term solace, to comfort in sorrow, misfortune or trouble, the alleviation of distress or discomfort, or something that gives comfort, consolation or relief. The Australian philosopher Glenn Albrecht coined the term solastalgia in 2005. He is an environmental philosopher with theoretical and applied interests in the relationship between ecosystems and human health, and provided the following definition. Solastalgia is the pain or sickness caused by the loss and lack of solace and the sense of isolation connected to the present state of one's home and territory. It is the pain experienced when there is recognition that the place where one resides and that one loves is under immediate assault of physical desolation. It is manifest in an attack on one's senses of place and the erosion of the sense of belonging or identity to a particular place, and a feeling of distress or psychological desolation about that place's transformation. Solastalgia refers to an individual's and community's experience of environmental and climatic change. Studies in solastalgia have been conducted in fishing communities, mining communities in Australia and the US, and farming communities in Australia experiencing drought and salinity. And globally, studies include the negative impacts that the experience of climate change, and specifically in relation to us, the First Nations people, on loss of land and the mental, emotional, physical and social signifiers of social and emotional well-being, and not just physical desolation. In more studies, research has been conducted of the Inuit experiences of instability and recession of Arctic ice, everyday experiences in poor communities in Ghana and the Torres Strait Islander communities, vulnerable populations' experiences of wildfires, Indonesian villages' experiences with volcanic eruptions and exposure to destruction due to natural disasters. UNE and our staff, students and our communities have experienced in a very real way the impact of drought, bushfires, and this year, the profound impact of the global coronavirus pandemic. By way of explanation of solastalgia, I offer the following example of Walla. In their 2018 paper, Asklin and Bunn conducted ethnographic fieldwork and explored the concept of solastalgia, or place-based distress, articulated by residents in the small village of Oorala, 48 kilometres northeast of Mudgee, near the Goulburn River National Park on Wiradjuri country. The expansion of the Wilpinjong open-cut coal mine led to community backlash against the New South Wales government, and the Department of Planning eventually admitted that their decision was responsible for and is the cause of the destruction of the whole community of Oorala, the village and surrounding community. This has led to a tangible sense of place-based distress, leading to the transformation and degradation of the Oorala home environment. The residents spoke of the negative socio-environmental impacts of noise, vibration and dust, increased levels of health problems including asthma, the loss of community and changes to place, as well as broken promises. In the words of Asklin and Bunn, the anguish experienced by people who remain in Oorala is manifold. It concerns the destruction of a known environment, of a place with continuity and narratives, an ending of long-standing social relations, and a loss of trust in the social institutions that are supposed to protect and secure people and their place in society. The loss of place experienced in Oorala through the slow process of mining approvals and subsequently expansion approvals is one that is lived in struggle with a social world that threatens a sense of place and an imagined future in that place. The mine has distorted the meaning of the place. It has changed it from a sleeping backwater village where people could flee the business of the city and the politics of the state to one where its residents on a daily basis are confronted by political concerns and experiences of inequality. It has uprooted friendships and relationships and left empty, derelict houses as reminders of a time in the past when familiarity and communion brought people together. It has transformed Oorala village and surrounds into a place where there is no future. Looking more like a ghost town, disharmony, dissonance and disruption are today common descriptors of the village. Everyday rituals set within the habits of the past, but guided towards future realities, have become distorted, and with that, a sense of homelessness has become embedded within the sense of home. Within the ongoing relationship to place, the familiar objects and the ways that these things are positioned inform people of themselves and orient them within their lives and realities. When these are lost or severed, when the previously peaceful nights are interrupted by the rumble of trains taking that place away, it is more than a psychological trauma, but a loss of the things that tell people what they are. As Asklin and Bunn contend, solastalgia offers a strong starting point for a discussion of these distresses. It sounds familiar, doesn't it? Indigenous people are experiencing climate change and long-term changes in and on country in their landscapes and environments. We are crying. Mother Earth is crying. We have a distressed sense of loss, and over these last couple of centuries have survived the threats to our sense of place. Moreover, along with you now, us too experience dislocation and homesickness while still at home. Worldwide, there is an increase in ecological distress syndromes, environmentally induced distress. Barry Jones, former science minister, speaks of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse in his new book, What is to be Done. He names these 4 planks: population growth and per capita use and overuse of resources, climate change, lack of fresh water and arable land, which has led to millions of people on the move, refugees, who are then blamed, pandemics, and finally racism and state violence. Jones insists that these things are all interrelated and intrinsically linked and demands a global response to ecological distress. In Australia, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people have suffered from successive government policies that have caused removals from family, culture, communities and country. This has led to overrepresentation in justice systems. We have double the rates of suicide than that of non-Indigenous people. And the terrible tragedy is that our very young people are feeling so lost, they are resorting to suicide. We have to check what cultural lens we look through. Many of our children are removed from family because of neglect. But why should we not look at the cause of neglect? Neglect is directly related to poverty, of successive generations of poverty. Instead of judging the outcomes of incarceration and suicide, let us change the way we look at this. In Australia, self-determination must be the lens through which we all look. We, Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people, are quite capable of identifying our problems and our solutions. We need to be supported to implement our programs in a culturally safe way. For example, much work has been done to look at the causes of suicide. People who might have suicidal ideation and who do not carry through have a resilient capacity to self-soothe. Early intervention programs are what is needed here to teach calming and to reduce overreaction to situations. In Australia, there has been persistent drought, extreme weather, deforestation, species extinction. In the case of Walla, open cut mining on my country, Goomera country, fracking, gas extraction and open cut coal mines. Our rivers are not running and are infested with pest species. There is coral bleaching, and in the Torres Strait Islands and across Pacific, the Pacific sea levels are rising, causing great distress and concern for the future. Our sense of powerlessness and lack of control over change is palpable. In climate-sensitive communities, including farming communities, there is poor mental health and a sense of disempowerment. This sense of disempowerment, or solastalgia, is not just about our relationship with an environment or country. It directly relates to that country's relationship to us, its meanings and connections, and the way it holds us in place. Indigenous people have never ceded responsibility and custodianship for country, and we will keep taking responsibility for caring, crying, singing, learning, acting, speaking, and thinking of country, whether we be on or off country. Solastalgia not only affects Indigenous people, it affects all of us, which is why we offer the Aboriginal proverb, healthy country, healthy people. We can learn from each other, respecting the concept of always was, always will be. We have no choice but to walk together. This is an ongoing imperative in all of our relationships with each other and our sentient beings to undertake this healing journey. Our future generations demand this of us, as they should. Solastalgia offers a strong starting point for a discussion of this place-based distress. We must engage in better ways of being, ways of valuing, ways of doing, and ways of knowing. A very wise elder, Mr. Paddy Jerome, told a gathering in Toowoomba, "It always was and always will be our land. We don't own it. We belong to it. Every living thing on it is part of it. People are custodians of the land. They are entitled to the spiritual content, but not to own it. We had native title from the word go. We were denied title to it. We were not considered as people." Country is home. It is the source of knowledge, law, science, spirituality, and survival. It is integral to the transmission of cultural knowledge, skills, and practice. In conclusion, I highly recommend Tyson Yunkaporta's book, Sand Talk, How Indigenous Thinking Can Save the World. No spoiler alert here, you'll have to read it. However, Yunkaporta concludes, "Now that the small questions of existence have been answered, why are we here? How should we live? What will happen when we die? Us too should be able to get back to the business of asking some of the bigger questions. We will need living lands and living bodies to do that though. So let's put these hands of ours to work. So what does thriving look like? What do respectful relationships with each other and with these lands look like? Let us start a healthier, more helpful, respectful, dialogical discourse. In other words, let us too start yarning and talking and speaking country again for a healthier future. Our children, our future generations, and our sentient beings demand this of us. Yama.
All right. Now we're going to do a dance called the Honeybee Dance. The Aboriginal translation for that is Irota Runang. Thank you.